4 racist police officers brazenly attacked a black man solely because of his skin color, assuming he was a suspect without any evidence. What they didn't realize was that this man carried an identity powerful enough to shake the very system of authority they relied on. When the truth was revealed, their careers not only collapsed, but also uncovered a series of dark secrets. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the shocking developments ahead. Malik Thompson stepped out of the bar on a cool evening, the air carrying the damp scent of a recent light rain. He had just spent an enjoyable time with friends celebrating his new job, a significant milestone in his life. At 6'3", with a strong build and an air of confidence, Malik didn't need to do much to draw attention. However, his presence wasn't welcomed by everyone. Parked along the curb, a patrol car sat quietly, and 4 officers stood nearby, their eyes fixed on him. Leading the group was Brad Cole, a short, stocky officer with a buzz cut and cold, disdainful eyes. The other 3, Eric Dawson, John Mendez, and Chris Tanner, stood around him looking as if they were ready for a takedown. Malik walked slowly along the sidewalk, his mind still lingering on the laughter and stories from the bar. But his peaceful moment was abruptly interrupted. "Stop right there!" Brad Cole's voice rang out like an executioner's command. Malik stopped, his calm gaze meeting theirs. "What's going on, officers?" Cole stepped forward, his demeanor confrontational. "We got a report of a troublemaker at the bar. You match the description." Malik raised an eyebrow, disbelief etched on his face at the absurdity of the claim. "Troublemaker? All I did was walk out." Cole sneered, his hand hovering near the gun at his hip. "Don't act smart. Do you want to make this harder than it has to be?" Malik maintained an extraordinary calm, but his words grew sharper. "I haven't done anything wrong. If you have a valid reason, I'm willing to cooperate. Otherwise, I have the right to keep walking." Malik's composed attitude only fueled Cole's anger. "Put your hands on the hood," Cole barked, his voice laced with menace. Malik didn't resist. He understood that confronting them now would only escalate the situation. But his eyes, sharp and unyielding, conveyed a clear message of defiance. Across the street, a young woman holding a phone began recording the scene. Malik glanced at her, his gaze silently communicating, "This isn't over." Despite his cooperation, Cole and his team shoved Malik onto the hood of the patrol car, locking his hands in cold steel cuffs. "Let's see how smart you are at the station," Cole said with smug satisfaction. Malik said nothing more, but his silence wasn't surrendering. It was the patience of someone who understood that justice sometimes takes time to prevail. As the patrol car pulled away, Malik's eyes once again found the lens of the woman's phone. That image was more than a testament to his resistance. It was a reminder that the truth would ultimately come to light. The patrol car rolled through the empty streets, street lights streaming past the windows as faint, blurry streaks of light. Malik sat silently in the back seat, the handcuffs digging into his wrists causing a dull ache, but his gaze remained calm as he looked out the window. Cole, seated in the front, occasionally glanced at him through the rear-view mirror, a sinister smirk flickering on his lips. "Think you're smart, don't you?" Cole said, his voice dripping with provocation. Malik didn't respond. His silence was like an impenetrable wall, further fueling Cole's irritation. Dawson, sitting in the passenger seat, smirked, though his eyes betrayed a sense of unease. Malik was led into a small interrogation room, the flickering fluorescent light overhead adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Cole and Dawson leaned against the wall, their eyes fixed on him like predators waiting for their prey to fall into their trap. "Sit down," Cole commanded, shoving Malik hard enough to make him collapse into the chair. Malik maintained his composure, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He wasn't surprised by the bare walls, the worn wooden table, or the security camera mounted in the corner, a familiar sight from interrogations he had faced in the past. "All right," Cole began, his gravelly voice deliberate as he dragged a chair closer to Malik, aiming to assert dominance. "Tell me, who do you think you are, looking at me like that? You're nothing more than a troublemaker." Malik tilted his head slightly, his lips pressing together, but his gaze didn't waver. "I've never thought of myself as better than anyone, but it's clear you think you have the right to do whatever you please." Dawson scoffed, stepping forward and slapping the table hard. "Watch your mouth. My friend here doesn't have much patience." Cole leaned in closer to Malik, his eyes full of contempt. "Listen, you should know where you are. This isn't a battlefield. This is my turf. Here, I'm the law." As Cole continued his threats, the narrative began to reveal more about Malik's past. Malik had once served in the Navy SEALs, an elite unit of the U.S. military. He wasn't just trained in tactics and survival, he had undertaken the most challenging missions, facing adversaries far more dangerous than the men standing before him now. Life and death mind games and split-second decision-making had forged a sense of calm within him that had now become his greatest weapon. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was his homeland, where he was supposed to feel safe. That realization only fanned the flames of anger burning within him. Cole moved to the door, pulling Dawson aside to whisper something. Malik tilted his head slightly to listen, his cold eyes tracking their every movement. The way they coordinated, their lowered voices, and the cryptic references to higher-ups made Malik realize something crucial. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. This group wasn't merely a few rogue officers abusing their power. They were part of a larger network where authority was cloaked in corruption and racism. Malik recalled Cole's smug expression in the way he spoke about his law. It wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of the power they believed they held. Malik understood that this wasn't just a fight for his honor. It was a fight to expose the truth, a truth Cole and those above him were determined to bury at any cost. As the interrogation room door closed, Malik's eyes turned to the camera in the corner. For a moment, his gaze sharpened, sending a message to whoever was watching. This battle has only just begun. The dim light in the interrogation room gradually blurred as Malik leaned back silently, closing his eyes. His mind was pulled back to another time, another place where his skin color was always the reason behind the injustices he endured. Malik grew up in a poor neighborhood where he and his family were constantly looked down upon by both neighbors and those in power. At school, Malik never forgot the times his teacher ignored his raised hand when he wanted to answer a question. Instead, white classmates were chosen, even if they didn't know the answer. "Why didn't she pick me?" Malik once asked his mother after a long day of being overlooked. His mother sighed softly, her eyes welling up with tears, and replied, "Because they don't see you as one of them." As he grew older, the discrimination became more blatant. During his first job interview, Malik had prepared meticulously, wearing a crisp white shirt and a neatly tied tie. But as soon as he entered, he noticed the manager's expression change the moment he saw Malik's skin color. "I'm sorry, the position has been filled," the manager said, even though the sign on the door still read, "Now hiring." Those memories were like scars, never fading. But instead of letting them break him, Malik turned them into motivation to fight. That's why he joined the Navy. He wanted to prove he was more than the color of his skin. He wanted to do more, to break the barriers that had held him and so many others back. The ringing of a phone on the interrogation table pulled Malik out of his memories. Beyond the wall, the sound of Cole and Dawson laughing echoed, mixed with chatter on the phone. They seemed unconcerned, but outside the reality was shifting. The video recorded by the woman across the street capturing Malik's arrest had gone viral on social media at lightning speed. The footage sparked outrage in the community. "This is a blatant abuse of power." One comment on the video read, "The police were just doing their job. This guy must have done something wrong." A dissenting opinion argued. Public opinion was sharply divided. One side condemned the actions of the police, calling it a clear example of systemic racism. The other, largely conservative, defended the officers, insisting their actions were justified and Malik must be held accountable for whatever he had done. This division wasn't confined to social media. It spilled into the streets in the form of protests. A small group gathered outside the police station, holding signs that read, "Justice for Malik," and "End Racism Now." Meanwhile, a countergroup appeared with banners proclaiming, "Support the police," and "Law is law." Malik was unaware of what was happening outside, but he could sense the growing pressure from the way Cole and his accomplices behaved. Their laughter became more strained, and Malik realized the video had caused a stir. He closed his eyes again, taking a deep breath. He knew this battle wasn't just about him. It stood for everyone who had ever been overlooked, belittled, or mistreated because of their race or circumstances. As the flickering lights in the interrogation room cast shifting shadows, Malik opened his eyes, his gaze resolute. He understood that while public opinion might be divided, the truth would ultimately prevail. He wasn't fighting just for himself, but for everyone who had no voice. Outside, no one knew that Malik's story was becoming a symbol of a far greater struggle, a fight against injustice and racism entrenched within this society. Inside the interrogation room, the flickering fluorescent light continued to pulse, and the ticking clock seemed to carve the tension deeper into the atmosphere. Malik sat silently, his expression calm, though his thoughts were anything but still. He knew he couldn't let this incident fade away like countless others. If he didn't act, Cole and his cohorts would continue to harm innocent people. After being released without any charges, Malik decided it was time to take action. The video of his arrest had spread widely, garnering support from some in the community, but he needed more than that. Solid evidence and someone within the network to help him. Malik reached out to Lisa Bennett, a woman he had read about in articles covering similar cases. Lisa had once fought for justice for her brother, who was wrongfully arrested and later died in custody. During her efforts, she faced threats, break-ins, and vandalism to her car. Ultimately, she had to step back to protect herself, but the resentment in her heart had never faded. Malik found Lisa at a small cafe where she often worked, staying out of sight of those who constantly watched her. "Malik Thompson," he introduced himself, pulling out a chair to sit across from her. Lisa looked up, her eyes wary. "I know who you are, and if you're here, it means you're about to stir up some serious trouble." "Trouble is what they've been causing," Malik replied, his voice low but resolute. "I need your help. I can't let Cole and people like him keep doing this, and I don't think you want that either." Lisa stayed silent for a long moment before sighing deeply. Painful memories flooded her mind. Her brother was taken away as her family watched helplessly. The sleepless nights filled with fear every time she heard a car stop outside her house. The harsh threats, "If you don't stop, you'll be next," still echoed in her head. Lisa bit her lip, torn by her conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to walk away and protect herself, but another part refused to let people like Reed continue unchecked. Her hands clenched tightly around her coffee cup, her eyes closed as if to steady herself. "If I help you, will this end?" Lisa asked, her voice almost trembling. Malik met her gaze without flinching. "I can't promise it will end, but I promise every step we take will make a difference. And if no one does anything, they'll just keep going." Lisa sighed again, but this time her eyes held a determined glint. "All right, I'll help you, but you have to promise me none of us will die for nothing." "That's why I need you," Malik said. "I know you have evidence, and I need you to show me where to start." Finally, Lisa agreed. She pulled a file from her bag filled with photographs, emails, and internal reports she had secretly gathered. "This is what I have," she said, sliding the file toward Malik. "But I warn you, Cole is just the tip of the iceberg. There's someone else, someone even more dangerous behind all of this." In Lisa's documents, Malik discovered critical details. Cole wasn't just abusing his power for personal gain, but was part of a larger corruption network involving smuggling, extortion, and cover-ups of serious violations. The documents revealed that Captain Thomas Reed, Cole's direct superior, was a powerful and ruthless figure. Reed not only shielded Cole from past accusations, but also used him as a tool to carry out his illegal activities. As Malik and Lisa worked through the documents, a sudden incident occurred. Just as Lisa was about to send a crucial piece of data to Malik via encrypted email, her computer was hacked. The screen went black before a message appeared. "We know what you're doing. Stop now, or it all ends here." Lisa's face turned pale as she tried to disconnect from the network, but it was too late. All her files were wiped, forcing her to rely on backups she had carefully hidden on an external drive. At the same time, Malik received a call from Andre, his friend, who spoke urgently. "Malik, there's a black car parked outside my house. I think they're watching me." Malik rushed to Andre's location, but by the time he arrived, the car was gone, leaving only a note in bold letters. "Next time, we won't just watch." Malik looked at Andre, his expression tense. "They're stepping up the pressure, but we can't back down. Be careful, Andre. No one should be alone from now on." Malik clutched Lisa's file tightly, his eyes cold and sharp. He understood that this battle wasn't just against Cole. It was against the entire system. Lisa looked at Malik, her voice carrying a warning. "Reed isn't someone you can take on easily. He has deep connections in the government. If you slip up, it won't just be you. Everyone you care about will be at risk." Malik raised his head, his gaze filled with resolve. "I've faced more dangerous people than him in war, but this time I'm fighting for justice in my own country. I don't intend to stop." Lisa smirked slightly, her smile tinged with bitterness. "You're crazy, Malik, but sometimes the world needs crazy people to change it." With Lisa's file in hand, Malik began piecing together the clues. He knew he was up against a powerful and ruthless force, but he also knew the truth was within reach. Elsewhere, in his luxurious office, Captain Thomas Reed sipped a glass of whiskey, a cold smile on his lips as he reviewed the reports about Malik's actions. "Let's see how far you can go," Reed murmured, his gaze as sharp as a blade. The battle had officially begun, and neither side intended to back down. Holding Lisa's file in his hands, Malik left the cafe with determination burning in his eyes. But he knew this step wouldn't just endanger him, it would put everyone around him in the crosshairs. In the city's shadows, his enemies weren't idle either. Somewhere, Captain Thomas Reed carefully monitored Malik's every move through his network. To Reed, Malik wasn't just a man daring to challenge the system, He was a threat that could unravel everything Reed had built. That evening, Lisa returned to her small apartment, her eyes constantly darting over her shoulder. After meeting with Malik, she knew she had re-entered the fight she once tried so hard to escape. She had just drawn the curtains when headlights shone directly into her window. A black SUV idled across the street, its engine running, but no one stepped out. A chill ran down Lisa's spine. She grabbed her phone to call Malik, but before she could, a message appeared. "We know what you're doing. Stop now if you want to live." Lisa's face went pale, her hands trembling as she held the phone. The SUV remained motionless for a few more minutes before slowly driving away, leaving her alone in the darkened apartment, shrouded in fear. At the same time, Andre, Malik's close friend, was also facing repercussions. Andre had been helping Malik organize and analyze the files from Lisa. He wasn't a fighter like Malik, but his loyalty was unwavering. As Andre left a convenience store, two men suddenly blocked his path. "Your buddy Malik doesn't know when to quit," one of them said before delivering a hard punch to Andre's stomach. Andre collapsed, gasping for air, but he managed to lift his head. "You won't win," he said, his voice weak but defiant. "Let's see if you can still help him after this," the other man replied before they disappeared into the night. Malik received a call from Lisa while reviewing the files in his apartment. Her voice trembled. "They know, Malik. They're watching me. A car was parked outside my house for an hour, and then I got a threatening message." Malik clenched his phone tightly, his jaw tense. "Are you okay?" "For now, yes. But I don't know what they'll do next," Lisa replied. As soon as he hung up, his phone rang again. This time it was Andre. His voice was weak but laced with anger. "Malik, they came for me. I'm okay, but be careful. These people aren't messing around." Malik felt the mounting pressure. These weren't mere warnings anymore. They were calculated moves to instill fear and force him to back down. Minutes later, an anonymous text arrived on Malik's phone. "Stop before it's too late. If not, those around you will pay the price." Standing in his small apartment, the faint light streaming through the window, Malik took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He knew Cole, Dawson, and Reed were tightening their grip. These weren't just corrupt cops. They were part of a criminal network shielded by power and fear. Staring at his phone, his eyes turned icy. He thought to himself, "They can threaten, they can attack, but I won't back down." The danger was closing in on Malik and everyone connected to him. Yet, instead of being disheartened, these challenges only strengthened his resolve. In the darkness, he knew he had to act swiftly before Reed and his network could escalate their actions. Outside, the night seemed darker than ever, and Malik understood all too well that this was only the beginning. Malik stared at his phone after reading the threatening message. The space around him seemed to fall into silence. His enemies had made it clear they wouldn't hesitate to harm anyone to protect their secrets, but Malik wasn't afraid. He knew he needed to act faster before they tightened their grip. Lisa, though living in fear, refused to stop. She used every piece of evidence she had collected and began connecting the dots. All night, she combed through internal reports, cross-referencing them with emails she had stored from years ago. By the next morning, Lisa called Malik, her voice urgent but steady. "I found it, Malik. Everything leads to one person, Thomas Reed." Malik was silent for a moment, gripping the phone tightly. "Are you sure?" "It's all here," Lisa replied, her voice dropping. "He's not just protecting Cole. He's directly ordering evidence to be erased and witnesses to be threatened. I even found his financial transactions. Large sums of money transferred to unknown accounts right after each investigation was closed. Lisa also uncovered how Reed had orchestrated Cole's rapid promotions over just a few years, despite multiple internal complaints about his misconduct. Reed isn't just corrupt, Lisa continued. He's running an entire protection racket, with officers under his command acting as enforcers. This isn't just one case of abuse of power, Malik. This is a system. Malik decided it was time to confront Reed directly. He found a way to approach Reed in his office, located in a luxurious government building that concealed countless dirty secrets. As Malik entered, Reed was sitting behind a large desk, holding a glass of whiskey. He didn't seem surprised to see Malik. Instead, a cold smile crossed his lips. "Well, here's our hero," Reed said, his tone calm but dripping with disdain. "Do you think you can take me on?" Malik stepped forward, placing a thick file on the desk. "I don't think. I know. This is the evidence of everything you've done, from shady transactions to covering up Cole's cases." Reed glanced at the file before looking up, his eyes sharp as knives. "You think this is enough to bring me down? I can make anyone, anything, disappear. You should think carefully before you proceed." Malik didn't flinch. "Threats don't work on me, Reed. I'm not like the others you've silenced." Reed chuckled softly, setting his whiskey glass down on the desk. "Listen, you're a smart man. Instead of continuing this fight, why don't we agree? I can give you anything. Money, fame, whatever you want. All you have to do is walk away." Malik leaned forward, his eyes cold. "You think I'm fighting for money or fame? I'm fighting for justice, something you'll never understand." Malik's response wiped the smile from Reed's face. His expression turned cold and menacing. "You've just made a grave mistake, Malik, one that will cost you dearly." Reed stood and walked toward the door. "Enjoy your remaining days, Thompson. They won't last long." After the meeting, Malik knew Reed wouldn't sit idly by. He realized he was stepping into the greatest battle of his life, where even the smallest mistake could cost him his life, or the lives of those he cared about. That evening, a series of alarming events unfolded. Lisa called Malik, her voice panicked. "I just saw two strange men near my house. I think they're looking for me." At the same time, Andre, still recovering from his earlier attack, received a message with a chilling warning. "Stop now, or you'll be next." Malik understood that Reed was moving from threats to real action. His enemies weren't just trying to suppress the truth. They were willing to do whatever it took to silence anyone who dared challenge them. But Malik didn't waver. With evidence in hand and an unshakable determination, he knew he had to act quickly. Every passing second brought the danger closer. The dense darkness enveloped the city. But in Malik's mind, tension swirled like a brewing storm. After his confrontation with Reed, he knew everything had changed. Reed wouldn't stop at mere threats. The incidents involving Lisa and Andre had made that clear. Now, Malik had to stay a step ahead. But his enemy wasn't just Reed. It was also the people under Reed's control. Tanner, one of the officers Malik had once considered a potential ally, sat in his patrol car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had done. Tanner had secretly passed information about Malik's plans to Cole, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. Cole and Reed had threatened him with pictures of his family and a past he had worked hard to keep hidden. That evening, Malik received an unexpected call. On the other end of the line was Tanner, his voice anxious. "Malik, we need to talk, right now." They met in a deserted parking lot where Tanner confessed everything. I've been feeding information to Cole," Tanner said, his eyes avoiding Malik's. "They threatened me, my family." Malik didn't respond immediately, his cold, piercing gaze making Tanner even more uneasy. Finally, Malik sighed. "You made a mistake, Tanner. The question is, what are you going to do to fix it?" Tanner looked at Malik, his eyes filled with regret, but also determination. For a moment, he recalled his wife's expression when she discovered the threatening messages Cole had sent. "They're going to hurt us, aren't they?" she had asked, her voice trembling, and Tanner had been unable to answer. The guilt of putting his family in danger weighed heavily on him every night. But beyond the fear, there was a deeper pain, knowing he had become a tool for the very people he despised. "I was wrong to be afraid," Tanner thought, clenching his fists. "But now, I won't back down." "I'll do it," Tanner said, his voice shaking but his eyes steady. "They think I'm a coward, but I'll show them I can do the right thing, even if it costs me everything." With Tanner's help, Malik's team, consisting of himself, Lisa, and now Tanner, delved deeper into the documents Lisa had gathered. During a long night at a secure location, they uncovered the most crucial piece of evidence: a list of secret financial transactions between Reed and several high-ranking officials. This list not only revealed massive sums used for bribes and cover-ups, but also named powerful figures in local and federal government. It was proof that Reed's network extended far beyond a single police department. It was a widespread system of corruption. Lisa, seated at her computer, stared at the screen. "We have enough to bring him down," she said, her voice tinged with both excitement and anxiety. Malik nodded, his expression contemplative. "But we have to be careful. This evidence is the key, but if we don't release it at the right moment, it will disappear along with us." As Malik's team uncovered the evidence, Reed began to feel the pressure. One of his operatives reported that Tanner had changed his behavior. Reed, sensing the growing threat, launched countermeasures. He approached a senior judicial official, Judge Henry Lasker, who had previously accepted bribes from Reed to bury past cases. Reed made a bold proposal. "All you have to do is dismiss the validity of the evidence if this goes to court. In return, I'll ensure your family's reputation remains intact." Initially hesitant, Lasker eventually agreed. But Malik, through the secret network Tanner provided, learned about the meeting via an encrypted message from an informant within the police department. "We need to act fast," Malik told Lisa. "If this judge gets involved, our entire plan will collapse." "He doesn't seem reliable anymore," one of Reed's agents remarked about Tanner. Reed smirked, his gaze ruthless. "If Tanner betrays us, we'll deal with him before he gets the chance to act." Reed ordered increased surveillance on Lisa and Andre and sent men to shadow Tanner. He also began preparing measures to neutralize the evidence, including staging arson attacks on record storage facilities. One night, Lisa noticed a strange car parked near their hideout. Malik and Tanner quickly went outside to investigate. The car drove away as they approached, but it was enough to remind them that Reed and his network were watching closely. Back inside, Malik looked at the group. "We're running out of time. We need to release this evidence publicly now." Lisa hesitated. "But we still need someone on the inside to testify. Without that, they'll dismiss everything as fake." Tanner stepped forward, his eyes resolute. "I'll do it. I've made mistakes, but now I'll do the right thing." With the critical evidence in hand and Tanner ready to testify, Malik knew they were on the brink of their final battle. But he also understood that Reed wasn't the kind of man to accept defeat easily. Outside, darkness blanketed the city. But inside, the fire of determination burned brighter than ever within Malik and his team. This fight wasn't just about taking down Reed. It was about exposing the truth of a system corrupted to its core. In the small dark room, Malik stood before the computer screen, the blue glow casting a resolute shadow on his face. The team knew time was running out. Every passing second increased the risk of being discovered. But now, they were ready to deliver the decisive blow. Lisa sat at the computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She was preparing to send all the evidence they had gathered to reputable journalists, people influential enough to force the authorities to pay attention. Malik and Tanner stood behind her, their eyes tense as they followed every step. "I've encrypted everything and sent it to 10 different journalists," Lisa said, her voice focused. "Once these files go live, they can't ignore it." Malik nodded. "Good. Are you sure everyone got it?" Lisa smiled briefly, but her expression quickly turned to worry. "Yes, but as soon as we do this, they'll know, and they won't sit still." Malik placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze sharp. But deep in his mind, he couldn't deny growing exhaustion. Every moment of this fight had taken its toll. Sleepless nights, threatening calls, and the gnawing fear that any one of them could be the next target. Malik thought of his fallen comrades on the battlefield, those who had taught him to fight not just with strength, but with conviction. He looked at Lisa, who had overcome her fears, at Tanner, standing there, trembling but unwavering. In that moment, Malik drew strength from them, and from his belief that this fight was bigger than himself. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself, "If I give up, everything we've done will mean nothing." Lisa hit send, and in that instant, the entire truth about Reed's corruption network was unleashed. Photos, emails, financial transactions, and a list of implicated officials flooded news outlets and social media. Within hours, the hashtag #OneExposeReed trended, fueling public outrage. Journalists began asking pointed questions to the government and police departments. Senior officials were forced to hold press conferences, but their vague answers only deepened public suspicion. In his lavish office, Reed stood before the television, his face hardening as news of his misconduct dominated every channel. "We have a problem," an aide entered, voice filled with alarm. "The public is in an uproar. All the documents have been made public." Reed turned, his icy gaze cutting through the room. "It's not the documents that matter. It's them. I want them silenced immediately. Erase everything, and find them." He issued orders decisively, deploying all remaining forces to hunt down Malik's team. The directive wasn't just to stop them, but to eliminate them if necessary. Lisa, having just released the evidence, became the first target. As soon as she left the safe house, a black SUV appeared, tailing her closely. When Malik intercepted the SUV during the pursuit, one of the men inside shouted, "Does she still have the rest of the files?" This made Malik suspect there was additional evidence yet to be uncovered. Lisa, gasping for breath, suddenly remembered an old hard drive containing files she hadn't fully reviewed. "It's still at my house," she said, her voice shaky. "We have to get it now," Malik replied, steering the car toward Lisa's house. But when they arrived, the door had been broken down. Papers were scattered across the floor, and the hard drive was gone. Malik clenched his fists, scanning the scene for clues. "They're not just trying to threaten us. They're trying to erase everything tied to Reed," he said. Lisa bent down to pick up a partially burned piece of paper, fear flickering in her eyes. "If they find that hard drive, we could lose everything." Lisa called Malik moments later, her voice trembling. "Malik, someone's following me. They're right on my tail." Her hands gripped the cold steering wheel, sweat beading despite the car's air conditioning. The roaring engine behind her grew louder, sending her heart racing. Lisa glanced repeatedly into the rearview mirror. the headlights of the SUV behind her like cold, predatory eyes. Fear surged through her, but deep within, a small spark of resolve ignited. I can't stop now. If I give in to fear, it all ends here. She thought of her brother, of Malik, of everything they had done to expose the truth. Lisa bit her lip, forcing herself to stay calm. Malik, I'll do as you say, but you need to get here fast. Malik immediately got into his car, racing toward her location. Stay calm, Lisa. I'm on my way. Don't stop. Head straight to the city center. They won't act in a crowded area. Lisa gritted her teeth, trying to steady her breathing as the SUV behind her accelerated, closing the distance. She swerved sharply into a narrow street, but it didn't slow her pursuers. The gap between them shrank further. Just as the SUV was about to cut her off, the blare of a car horn pierced the air. Malik appeared from another direction, ramming his car into the SUV to force it off course. "Get in!" Malik shouted as his car skidded to a stop next to Lisa. She jumped in, and they sped away before their pursuers could react. But Malik knew this was just the beginning. With the evidence now public, the world was forced to confront the truth about Reed's corruption network. But it also pushed Malik and his allies into greater danger than ever. Reed, with his power crumbling, was willing to do anything to protect himself, no matter the cost. The battle had entered its most brutal phase, and Malik knew there was no turning back. The roar of the engine echoed as Malik sped away from the danger zone. Lisa sat beside him, her hands trembling, but her eyes burned with determination. The chase they had just endured was only a small glimpse of what lay ahead. Malik knew that to end this, he would have to confront Reed directly, where all the secrets were buried. That night, Malik parked a few blocks away from Reed's office. Though the building was heavily guarded, he had prepared meticulously. His Navy SEAL training allowed him to move silently through the dark hallways, avoiding security cameras and patrols. Malik found his way to Reed's office, a luxurious room with large windows overlooking the city. The light from neighboring buildings cast ominous shadows on the walls. He began searching the desk, filing cabinets, and even a hidden wall safe. As he rifled through, Malik uncovered a folder containing irrefutable evidence, records of financial transactions, directives signed by Reed to manipulate cases, and a list of officials who had accepted bribes. Malik exhaled softly, realizing this was the final piece of the puzzle. But before he could leave, a deep voice echoed from behind him. "Do you think you're walking out of here alive?" Malik turned to see Reed standing at the door, holding a glass of whiskey as if everything were under his control. There was no fear on Reed's face, only disdain and confidence. Reed stepped to his desk, set down the glass, and spoke slowly. "You think this ends here? I've been preparing for this moment for a long time, and if I go down, I'll take you with me." From the desk drawer, Reed pulled out a small USB drive and held it up like a trump card. "This contains everything I've gathered about you, Malik Thompson. Don't forget, I have friends in the military, friends who've shared some interesting stories about you. Some of your missions didn't exactly follow protocol, did they?" Malik clenched his fists, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "You think you can threaten me with that?" Reed smirked, his voice laced with mockery. "I don't think, Malik. I know. If the people out there knew their so-called hero once disobeyed orders or left his comrades behind on a mission, do you think they'd still trust you?" Malik remained calm, but a storm brewed inside him. "Whatever happened in my past, I'll take responsibility for it. But today, I won't let you continue destroying innocent lives." Reed laughed, but it wasn't a genuine laugh. It was bitter and calculating. "Then make your choice, Malik. I have Lisa somewhere you'll never find her in time. Hand over all the evidence, and she'll be safe. If not, he shrugged, his cold smile cutting through the tension. Before the FBI stormed in, Reed discreetly pressed a button on his desk. A hidden hard drive in the wall began uploading data to an external server. He sneered at Malik. "You might win this round, but don't think you can take down the whole system. The real evidence is already secure, and it will never reach you." Malik noticed a blinking light on the wall and realized what was happening. He lunged to disable the drive, but it was too late. Even as the FBI agents handcuffed Reed, the man wore a triumphant smirk. "You can put me in prison, but my network will live on. What have you won, Thompson?" The FBI seized the hard drive, but Malik knew part of the information had already been stolen. He watched as Reed was escorted away, his chest heavy with the weight of unfinished business. "This fight isn't over," he thought. "Thomas Reed, you're under arrest for corruption, bribery, and civil rights violations," an agent announced firmly. Reed turned to Malik, his eyes blazing with fury. "You called them?" Malik held up the folder, his voice resolute. "Not just called. I gave them everything they needed. This is the end for you, Reed." Reed struggled against the agents, shouting, "You can't do this. I'm more powerful than you think. I'll be back." But the clink of handcuffs locking around his wrists silenced him. The agents dragged Reed out of the office, leaving Malik standing alone, feeling a mix of relief and tension. Malik gazed out the window at the sprawling city lights. The battle with Reed was over, but he knew its aftermath would ripple for a long time. For the first time in days, Malik allowed himself to relax his shoulders. He knew he had done the right thing. Justice had been served, and the corrupt system Reed had built was beginning to crumble. Outside, as Reed was loaded into an FBI vehicle, he glared back at Malik with hatred in his eyes. But Malik stood firm. He understood that while this fight was over, there was still much to be done to ensure the truth would never be buried again. The darkness of the previous night gave way to the light of day as the city began to awaken. The streets buzzed with the news of Thomas Reed's arrest. Public outrage surged from those who had been his victims, and hope bloomed among those who longed for justice. Malik knew this was a pivotal moment, bringing Reed and Cole to justice and ensuring they were held accountable for their crimes. The courtroom was packed for the trial. Victims, journalists, and justice advocates gathered to witness the moment Reed's corrupt system would be exposed. Reed and Cole sat opposite the jury, their faces hardened, though tension was evident in their eyes. The prosecutor presented a mountain of evidence: emails, financial transactions, and witness testimonies, all directly implicating Reed and Cole in a years-long corruption network that had caused immeasurable harm to the community. When it came time for sentencing, the judge looked directly at Reed and Cole, her voice firm and resolute. "Thomas Reed and Bradley Cole, you abused your power, destroyed public trust in the legal system, and harmed countless innocent people. After careful consideration of all evidence, this court finds you guilty of all charges." She continued, her tone authoritative. "For corruption, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power, you are sentenced to 20 years in prison without the possibility of parole." The courtroom erupted. Some clapped, while others wept with relief. Reed lowered his head, silent but seething with fury as he glared at Malik. Cole, in contrast, tried to justify his actions, but his words were dismissed outright. Before the trial concluded, Malik was invited to speak. He stood, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. The room fell silent as everyone awaited the words of the man who had exposed the truth. After his statement, a journalist asked, "Mr. Malik, do you have any comments about the accusations Reed made? Did you truly disobey orders in the military? Malik took a deep breath, his eyes steady. I won't deny there were times when I had to make tough decisions during missions, but everything I did was to protect my team and complete the mission to the best of my ability. I'm willing to answer any investigation into my past. However, today, we must not let baseless accusations overshadow the fact that Reed and his network have caused immense harm to countless innocent people. Malik's words were met with applause. Despite Reed's attempts to sow doubt, Malik knew truth and transparency were the only ways to continue the fight for justice. As Malik finished, thunderous applause filled the courtroom, a resounding affirmation that truth and justice still mattered. After the trial, life slowly began returning to normal. Tanner, once ensnared by Reed's network, chose to fully cooperate with the FBI. He provided information on other conspirators, expanding the investigation and bringing more corrupt officials to light. Tanner understood this was his only path to redemption. Lisa, with Malik's support, began using her story to advocate for social reform. She appeared on television, spoke to the public, and partnered with nonprofit organizations to raise awareness about protecting citizens' rights against abuse of power. Outside the courthouse, Malik stood among those he had fought to protect. He knew this battle wasn't just about Reed or Cole, it was about transforming a broken system. Following the trial, Malik received an unexpected invitation from a reform committee established by the local government. The committee was tasked with restructuring the legal and law enforcement systems, inspired by Malik's actions. Malik, we need you, the committee leaders said during their first meeting. Your experience and determination will be the guiding light for the changes ahead. Malik didn't give an immediate answer. He needed time to reflect, but he recognized this as a chance to turn his sacrifices into meaningful, lasting change, not just on paper, but in the public's trust. Meanwhile, the documents uncovered during the investigation led to additional arrests. High-ranking officials once shielded by Reed were exposed for their roles in corruption and abuse of power. The investigations extended beyond Malik City, reaching neighboring areas. Reed's name became a symbol of systemic rot, but also a warning to those hiding in the shadows. Lisa, now a prominent figure in the reform movement, received invitations to speak nationwide. She partnered with nonprofits to continue the fight for justice, using her story as a reminder that truth and courage could change everything. Tanner, after fully cooperating with the FBI, became a mentor in training programs for young police officers. He dedicated himself to teaching accountability and ethics, determined to prevent others from repeating his mistakes. Standing outside the courthouse, Malik watched the people around him, the individuals he had fought to protect. A young boy ran up, grabbed his hand, and said, "Thank you for standing up." The innocent, trusting eyes of the child brought a smile to Malik's face. He knew this journey wasn't just about the past. It was about the future of generations to come. In the morning light, Malik allowed himself a small smile. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but he had proven that even the most powerful could not escape justice when met with courage and determination. As the bright morning light bathed the city, Malik left the courthouse with a temporary sense of relief. Reed and Cole had been sentenced, but he knew the battle was far from over. The corrupt system they had built couldn't be dismantled overnight, and those lurking in the shadows would undoubtedly regroup and find new ways to hide the truth. At a small cafe in the city, Malik sat across from Lisa and Tanner. The three watched the news coverage of further arrests linked to the evidence they had exposed. Despite the victories, worry was etched on Malik's face. "I think we've only scratched the surface," Malik said, his voice pensive. Reed wasn't the only one. There are still others in this system, people smart enough to stay in the shadows and let Reed take the fall for them. Lisa nodded, idly spinning her coffee cup. I found a few more documents. They don't name names directly, but there are traces linking to higher-ranking officials. Tanner, now firmly on Malik's side, shook his head. Those people won't go down easily. They're more powerful than Reed and far more dangerous. Malik looked at them, his eyes resolute. I can't stop now. If we've come this far, there's no reason to quit. I'll keep fighting, even if I have to do it alone. As Malik prepared for the next steps, the public began to see positive signs. Reed's trial had not only exposed the truth, but sparked a wave of demands for reform. The police department, once the heart of Reed's corrupt network, was now under intense scrutiny. Senior officials with questionable records were dismissed, and new policies were implemented to ensure transparency and accountability. Lisa, now a recognizable figure at workshops and social campaigns, became a symbol for those who refused to give up the fight for justice. We don't just need to change the laws, she said during a televised interview. We need to change the mindset that power must come with responsibility, not abuse. Tanner, after cooperating with the FBI, was given a chance to rebuild his life. He joined a nonprofit organization that supported victims of abuse of power, using it as a way to atone for his past mistakes. Though progress was being made, Malik knew the fight wasn't limited to one city or a handful of people. Standing on the balcony of his apartment, he gazed at the city below, glowing under the night lights. Malik understood that many places and countless people remained unprotected, and justice was still a luxury for far too many. Lisa sent him a message. Malik, I keep thinking about Reed's claim that he held me hostage. I wanted to ask, why did you choose to save me instead of keeping all the evidence? Malik read the message, his eyes softening. He replied, because, Lisa, justice isn't just about exposing the truth. Justice is about protecting the vulnerable, the ones the system has abandoned. If I hadn't saved you, everything I did would have been meaningless. Lisa responded a few minutes later, her words brief but profound. Thank you. I'll keep fighting. For all of us. Malik stared at the screen, a faint smile crossing his face. He knew he wouldn't stop, and he wasn't alone. Reed's corrupt network had been dismantled, but those behind it were still in hiding. Malik, Lisa, and Tanner all understood that their journey was far from over. Yet, what they had achieved brought hope, not just for themselves, but for a community that had been left behind. It proved that justice could prevail when faced with courage and perseverance. The shadows still lingered, but the light had begun to break through, bringing new rays of hope for tomorrow. Malik sat in his small room, the warm glow of his desk lamp illuminating the scattered documents. The battle against Reed had yielded significant results, but the new files Lisa had sent reminded him that the journey was far from over. He picked up a photograph of the community standing outside the courthouse, holding banners demanding justice. Malik realized that in this fight he was never truly alone. Real strength didn't lie in one individual or a single system, but in the unity of those willing to stand up and persevere. A week later, Malik appeared at a public speech at a community center, a gathering place for victims of abusive power. Dressed in a sharp black suit, he walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. "This story isn't about me," Malik began, his voice resonating through the hall. "This is the story of all of us, those who have faced injustice but have never given up hope. I used to think I was just one small person against an immense, unbeatable system. But what I've learned is that real power lies in action, Even a single person, if brave enough to speak the truth and stand against wrong, can spark change. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the audience. Every action we take, no matter how small, has meaning. A single step can begin an entire journey, and that journey is about fighting for justice and building a better world. When the speech concluded, Malik lingered on the stage, watching the crowd as they dispersed. Some approached him to shake his hand, thanking him for restoring hope. In their eyes, Malik saw a transformation. Not just renewed faith in justice, but a newfound belief in themselves. That night, back home, Malik sat by the window, looking down at the city. The twinkling streetlights resembled tiny flames, symbols of hope within every individual. Lisa sent him a message. The community has changed, but there's still so much work to do. Malik replied, "True, and we'll keep going." Malik's story didn't end with closure, but with a beginning. It wasn't just about dismantling a corrupt network. It was a testament to the power of courage, perseverance, and unity. Injustice still existed, but the glimmers of hope had started to shine, igniting flames within the community. Malik understood that strength wasn't about power. It was about resolve and the willingness to act. Under the starry sky, Malik smiled. His journey might continue, but he knew that as long as one person dared to stand up, the world could change. Remember, Malik reminded himself, justice doesn't come from waiting. It comes from action. Malik's story isn't just about fighting a corrupt system. It's a powerful reminder that while one person may seem small, standing against injustice can change the world. Let this story inspire you to never remain silent in the face of wrongdoing, and to always hold on to your faith in justice. What are your thoughts on the power of an individual in the fight for justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next inspiring video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the upcoming stories full of inspiration.